Hi, I'm Mark, producer of Roundtable, the TV series born here in New York City at the legendary Manhattan Neighborhood Network Studios. The exchange of ideas is important, and that is why we bring to you the following presentation. Please watch.
Good evening and welcome to Single Shot Show at Manhattan Neighborhood Network. It was quite a while since New York art scene was crippled by the pandemic, and it only now starting to slowly get back, and we're starting to see some of the shows that are newly created and some of those that actually was meant to be displayed back in the spring. And our first visit is to old friend of the show, Spencer Throckmorton at Throckmorton Art. Hello, Spencer, and thank you very much for having us here today. So, as I understand, this show was actually one of those that was meant to be shown to the world in the spring, and pandemic was a reason why it was not displayed to the public, right?
Yeah, it was due open on March 15th. Thank you very much for having me. And the show is called Transcendence, and it is based on early Buddhist sculptures in both limestone, marble, and sandstone. It was collected over a 20-year period, and most of the pieces were acquired between 2001 and 2009 in Hong Kong, and from old private collections in Hong Kong. And because of the pandemic, from SARS, which had happened earlier, they had decided to sell things, and then I had been negotiating and then went there in 2001 and was able to acquire some major Buddhist sculptures and import them legally into the U.S. I'm really pleased that I did it. It was a tremendous undertaking, and each piece has been thoroughly vetted, both by museum experts and two of the top Chinese experts, Dr. Chan Qing from China and Dr. Gu Fang from China as well. It really covers from 530 to about 650 AD. And I was very pleased to be able to present this for Asia Week, which didn't happen because of the pandemic. So I moved it to Asia Week Fall. And so this is the first time it's being shown.
Oh, it's indeed a remarkable collection, very diverse. What's the geographical areas from where
it covers most of central China, from Shandong, which is in the north, which is near Beijing, to Hubei, and down into the various areas of the south. But most of the sculptures are from the north and had been collected by Chinese collectors in Hong Kong over a period of 30 years.
Is there any underlining features of the sculpture of this period that would be visible in this collection?
It's mostly Bodhisattvas and Buddhas, and you see the subtle changes that happened from the Wei period through the Northern Qi period, and we have some great examples of Northern Qi sculpture and some fabulous examples of very early Tang sculpture. It stops about, I would say, around 650. We don't go into late Tang or Sung sculptures. But that was the focus, and we do have a catalog called Transcendence. It is available. It's a total of over 125 pages, and it deals with the changes that happened to Buddhism within China. And one of the major pogroms or disruption of Buddhist sculpture happened in 577, where the imperial troops destroyed a lot of the northern Qi monasteries, and that caused the rise of the Sui in 580, and then you have the Tang period coming in at 612.
Usually when you look at the sculptures, the way they damaged can tell a lot about its history, and I noticed that on many, the hands are actually the ones that have most damage. Is it related to this religious prosecution situation?
Yeah, it was for the religious prosecution. The emperor was trying to get rid of Buddhism because the Buddhist monasteries were becoming very wealthy and very influential in politics in the court, and so the imperial troops went out and they knocked the hands off and the heads of the Buddhas. They were very particular not to try to damage the nose or knock the head off. Most of the time it was just either topple them off their stands in the monasteries and break the hands or the feet. But they're in basically extremely good condition because the monks went back in, saved the pieces, wrapped them in robes, and reburied them. So they were like a time capsule. And when China in the 80s started to do huge expansions along the riverbanks, the ruins were rediscovered, and that was where they were building condominiums and housing. So a lot of Buddhist sculpture appeared on the market, and it became visible once again. But they had been buried for more than 1,000 years, almost.
Well, they did a remarkable preservation. Another thing I noticed that there is a huge diversity in the amount of detail. Some of them look almost like contemporary art piece, and how concise and how simple the lines are. And some are very elaborate, reminding me of, say, Indian ways of depicting religious figures.
It's interesting that you say that because Buddhist sculpture was influenced from India through the Silk Road. And a lot of the details, a lot of the iconography comes from India, but the faces are totally Chinese. They are not Indian. Well, they followed a certain iconographic detail as far as robes were concerned, but as it progressed past the northern Qi, you're going into the Sui and the Tang, and so China's becoming very wealthy at this period, and so the details on the robes and costumes are very elaborate, and they're decorated with jewels and medallions and pearls. And it wasn't to represent so much spiritual, material wealth, but spiritual wealth.
No, just like I would imagine in every religion, that's one of the reasons why the gilding of the religious artifacts was popular virtually through every major religion at one point or another, just like those two examples behind it.
Yeah, that's true. They because Buddha was a divine being, they a lot of times would gild the face in gold, and it was direct, pure gold that was applied through gesso and through shellac.
Remarkable. So probably it's a good time for us to look at some of the detail of the specific artifacts, right?
Okay.
So let's see what we're looking at here.
Well, this is a beautiful representation of Buddha. It's a fantastic robe with the tie here for the order, and both hands were damaged in the pogrom. And these purges happened. This purge happened in 877. We've had several sculptures. There's one other that you'll see in the show that I call the Michelangelo of Northern Qi sculpture because of the refinement of the marble. And marble sculptures were commissioned by noble families and were more expensive than the limestone or sandstone figures. This one is a great example. It's small, and you can see the Unisha of the Buddha here, and you can see they have not been cleaned. They are as I acquired them from the collectors. The collectors in Hong Kong did a little slight cleaning of the face and things, but this is a great example of a piece between 550 and 577 with traces of original color. But it's a great, and it's in the closed eyes represents meditation.
And I would like to mention something that I just observed. All the conspiracy theories that talking about civilizations that existed before that was way more advanced than we believe so. A lot of them operating with the craftsmanship in the working with the hard stone, just like the one we observe here. It's really looking at this hard to believe that with relatively simple instruments it's possible to reach such a precision and such a detail.
Yeah, it's amazing, the refinement. And then we can move to this one, which is from, you might want to move the camera a little bit, is from Northern Qi, right at the transition to the Sui period. And you can still see the Unisha here, and you can see the damage done by the purge. But it's a wonderful one. We did not clean it. We left it exactly as the collector had collected it.
What about this piece in the corner?
Well, this one is also a very unusual bronze. It's from the 8th century, and it's from Korea, and it's a Bodhisattva sitting in the royal ease and in meditation. And it's been TL tested, and it dates 850 AD.
I can't help to notice that the facial features on the one behind it, it's not a part of this collection, it's something different, or it's one of the Buddhas as well? This one?
Yes,
behind it.
yes.
It is?
Yeah, it is.
Right.
So you see, this is early, this is about 550, then we move to the Sui period, which is about 680. And already you begin to see the elaborateness of jewels, and she's holding a water bottle, and this are peacock feathers, and this is rose water for offering. And then you move to a little bit later in the Sui period, where the faces become fuller, the decoration becomes more elaborate, and you do have gold, traces of gold here.
I can only imagine how it looked when it had all the original painting on it.
It would have been painted red with gold on the face, gold on the jewels, and would have been very elaborate.
Well, as I understand, some of the original were still left in this one.
Yeah, and this one is also to me is by the same school as the first one. So again, here is a little bit, it is also Northern Qi going into Sui. I guess you could say this is really around 580 because of the elaborateness of the jewels and of the expression. It's a little bit, and the face becomes plumper. And you can see little tufts of folds. Yeah, the second chin. Exactly.
Yes, this is very interesting evolution. I guess the more established the culture was becoming, the more extra weight was considered to be a sign of prosperity and success, just like in many other cultures as well.
Exactly.
And that's very interesting to observe this evolution in similar subject works from different periods.
And this is also Northern Chi, and we have another piece which is also from which is a great piece. It's a Bodhisattva, but we're moving into the early Tang period. So we move into the Tang period, and you see very elaborate costume. She's holding a lotus here, and this is the blessing of the earth. And she has a typical Tang headdress, but very elaborate jewels. It has a lot of the original color. And it's made in two parts, the lotus base and the figure.
And the lotus base is becoming to be a standard, as I understand, around this period. There's the earlier ones.
It actually starts in the Wei period and goes through. It becomes more relaxed. This is an earlier one from the Northern Chi, and then this is one from the Tang period.
And how they're different?
This one this one's much more relaxed. This one's more static.
Oh. So if we move it further.
And then also here's another one from the Tang period, very early Tang, or Sui actually, I think it would be considered, but the base is already beginning to relax as well. The one behind is also from because of the simplicity of the robe, is from the late Northern Chi, early Sui.
Well, this one is also some remains of the original paint in it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of the original red.
And
because the monks' robes at this period were red. And so you have red here as well.
And the fabric becomes to be very realistic in a way. It's positioned on the body compared to the previous generation ones.
Mm-hmm. It's the influence coming from India.
As well as probably the headpiece, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Alright, so let's move further.
What you do find in this period is a lot of heads that are without bodies. And here's the torso. This is from the Hubei area, and it is green marble. This one is limestone, and this is a beautiful Buddha head with original color. And this is leaving meditation.
And marble still remains to be a very rare material for those, right?
Yeah, it's a very expensive material and a very...
In general, yes, and green marble double so probably.
Yeah, double so. They considered it jade.
Yes.
But you can see where I was telling you about the doing of the gold on top of the face and body, because he's a divine being, so it radiates, and so gold is the perfect medium for the radiation of light. The transcendence of light. Jade is different. It's not marble, but it's similar in hardness. Marble is 7, jade is 7. So it's very similar, but there is a crystal structure of jade that fits together like this, and the light, when it's absorbed into it, is bent, and so it radiates. And this is also a beautiful one of Northern Chi, and they're also carved in the round. This is the flame of truth, and also holding a rose water bottle. This is a great example. Very simple, very elegant, very beautiful.
And on this one, I presume the same bottle is on the necklace, right?
Mm-hmm. It still has gold designs on the jewelry. The Bodhisattvas usually do not have gold faces, but Buddhas do. And this is actually a Bodhisattva, and these are solar discs. They represent the sun and moon.
And this one is very special. I wonder if the material is very soft.
It's limestone. It's a little bit softer. It probably was repainted in this is one that stayed in a monastery and continuous use, because it has been painted several times. And this paint probably is paint from the Ming period. So this was not in the ground, was not buried. It was in continuous use in the monastery.
Yeah, the thing is, the reason why I was asking if the material was soft, because the detail of carving on this one is resembling of what you would see on the woodwork.
Exactly. Yeah,
So
very much so.
Yes.
Yeah, and the sculptor,
But doing it with any kind of stone is pretty remarkable achievement.
it really is. This is in limestone. It is, you have the second brain of the Unisha, and it's in a dispersing of blessings by Buddha. It's complete, which is very unusual. It's not been broken or restored.
Speaking of the broken off hands, that's probably one of the things that's very hard to see.
It's very hard to find. Most of the time, this probably represents one that was hidden. It has been buried. So probably they knew that the troops were coming, they took it and they wrapped it in a robe and buried it, and it stayed buried.
Well, in a way, it actually reminds me of the Old Faith Orthodox. Also was pressed to hide the icons. What about this one? The detail on this one is even more remarkable than on the previous examples.
Yeah, it's a change in period. This is from the Sui period, just before the Tang, and so it has a very elaborate jewelry, and it is a Bodhisattva. And it is also from the Shandong area, and this has a very similar torque that is similar to one in the collection in the Freer. But it's a wonderful one. The costume is very elaborate. This is one of my favorites. This is a beautiful Northern Chi figure. Both hands are missing, but the robes are incredible, as well as the tie, which is here. It's a fantastic one from Shandong, probably, and it's in limestone, but it has wonderful expression. It's probably somewhere between 570 and 577. It was made probably in that period.
Oh, that's exactly the one I was looking at when I was saying that some of them look like they almost was made by contemporary art sculptor.
It's because of the simplicity of robe and simplicity of planes.
And in this simplicity, it yet says a lot.
It really does.
Yes, even in those simplest parts of the outfit, it still exactly followed the body, which again tells about advancement in anatomy understanding by this time period and the qualifications of the sculptor.
There's a slight sway in the figure is leaning back. So here, there's a slight shift, ever so slight. Now we jump back to the early period of the Wei period, where the second brain is very pronounced. You have here the Wheel of Dharma and a similar type robe, but it's more elaborate. It's like waves. It's like waves of Buddhism, waves of knowledge.
There is a lot of expression on the face of this example.
Yeah, this one has attained enlightenment. This is when Buddha attained enlightenment, so there is a fantastic, majestic smile.
Oh, it's actually this because of that. This particular one stands out from the rest of the collection, where most of the time expression is very calm, representing the balance and meditation. This one is very emotional comparing to all of the neighbors.
Right, that's true.
That's absolutely.
And this is one of the masterpieces. To me, this is an incredibly beautiful one. It is late Northern Chi. The robe is very elaborate, beautiful tracery here of the way that the folds fall. It's a wave pattern. And of course, this still has gold on the hands, and there's even details as far as the fingernails. That's how fine the sculptor was. And the face was probably hammered gold, as well as the feet. And lots of traces of red.
What strikes me particular interesting about this one is specifically this folds on the bottom and the shape of the lotus. They both look like a classic Greek sculpture if you think about it.
Absolutely.
So close that it actually makes at least me wonder if the artist actually seen some of the examples.
Well, yeah, I think because of the Silk Road, you had early sculptors coming in from the Gandharan period, which is coming in from Greece, and since things change very slowly, that influence stays, and that's probably from the Greek period. Yes, and the same here. This one is very lucky that it has a lot of its original gold. It was probably stayed in a monastery and was not buried. It has the green color here was originally repainted during the Ming period, but the gold stayed from the original period. But it's a very beautiful one. Again, it's Sui period between 580 and 612. Here we've moved into the Sui period. This is probably late. This is just before the horizon of the tongue, and the faces become very full, but you don't have the folds of flesh under the neck. So, but you also have the elaborate headdress and the elaborate jewels. But it represents probably the Sui period at its height, or even Northern Zhou. It's a little bit influenced by Northern Zhou.
Indeed. Remarkable.
It's remarkable that it's in such great condition. It was holding a scroll here, and there's just a little loss of the scroll, but otherwise it's pretty good. And the mandala was broken in the back. So it represents a Bodhisattva, a divine being, who stayed on earth to help mortals.
Don't we need some of them paying a little bit attention to our humble New York area, right?
Now we need it more than ever.
Spencer, I'm really glad that we're getting back art to New Yorkers.
Mm-hmm.
It's really important part of our existence, and one of the reasons why our city always been great, and seeing something so remarkable being back on display with all the precautions and all the things that we was going through and still continue to go through. It's actually very important for our city to have something like this being on display and being available for public.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for inviting us. Looking forward for seeing more great things coming.
I hope you found that worth watching as much as I did. I'm Mark for Roundtable. Thanks for watching. See you next week.